Welcome to Happy Hour Conversations podcast, where we normalize hard, emotional, and raw conversations, such as grief, infertility, mental health, menopause, and all other sister friend talks, sprinkled with a lot of laughter for the soul. We encourage our community to focus on areas of growth, becoming a better version of self each day, and exercising in faith over fear. As we redefine ourselves as life shifts and we rearrange the puzzle pieces. I am your girl, Tamika R. Moon, and in this first season, we are focusing on grief, a journey that we will experience but rarely discuss and normalize our feelings. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on IG at Happy Hour Conversations Podcast. Before we jump into the episode, let me share this week's affirmation. We have to validate and encourage ourselves. I want you to say these words. I am unique. I am divinely made. I come from greatness. I am greatness. I am bold, even in the midst of being scared. I believe and bet on me. I am. Continue to add to this affirmation as you validate yourself and move in purpose. Let's jump into the episode. Welcome to Happy Hour Conversations. I am Tamika.
I'm the amazing T Street.
We have the amazing T Street here with us today that's going to come and share her story. She is a national motivational speaker, trainer, and educational consultant. T, I've done some research. You have been to New Mexico, California, Texas, Missouri. You have been all over.
I've spoken in 49 of the 50 states.
49 of the 50 states? Oh, you're on the move. Do you plan on going to any countries?
I've spoken in 7 countries.
7 countries as well? Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Amazing. What can you share what countries?
I've been to, Aruba, which is an island. I've been to Germany. I've been to France. I've spoken in England. I spoke in Jamaica. And I'm missing one. Don't ask me a 7th one.
That's dope. Okay. Trying to be like you when I grow up. T is coming on to share her story. T, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us who you are, and then just dive straight into your story.
So I'm the amazing T Street. You've already told them that I'm a speaker and a trainer and education consultant. In one of my lives, in my other life, I'm the director of the Health Sciences Academies for the largest land-grant institution in the country, The Ohio State University. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, not originally, but I've been here since I was 9, so it's Columbus. I'm a graduate of Mifflin High School, a 2-time graduate of The Ohio State University. Currently, I'm working on a master's in ministry in seminary. I graduated in May. Woo-hoo! So
May 2020
May 2023. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So I started in July of 2021. So it's a 2-year program full time. So in addition to traveling and doing everything else, I'm a full time student. So
wow, you busy.
I am busy.
You stay busy. Well, listen, I just want to say thank you for coming on with your busy schedule.
Thank you for having me.
Can you just dive into your story? This season we are talking about grief. So I want you to share your story. Dive in. Give us about 5 to 7 minutes of your story.
My story is, it's not very different than a whole lot of people's stories, but it's mine. And so I experienced it differently because, it's who we are. My mom transitioned on January 13th, 2021. And as much as, we had prayed for that, we had prayed that my mom wouldn't stay here long, living in the condition, she had Alzheimer's, that she wouldn't live like that. She would have hated it. And we asked God, my sister, my dad, and I touched and agreed. And we're people of faith. And we asked God to not prolong that. And as much as we knew that it was coming, nothing in life prepares you for the death of a parent. Particularly the death of my mom. Nothing in life prepared me for it. Leading up to it, it didn't prepare. About a week before she transitioned, 6 days before she transitioned, we had a home evaluation to look at the option for home hospice. God was working. He was in the midst of every single piece of how it all happened. They're supposed to do this long screening exam. The woman came and she was interviewing our family, and my mom was in the other room. And I mentioned one of my friends who works with their hospice program on a different team, and everybody loves her. And she said, "Oh, you know her?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're good friends." She goes, "Oh my God, and we love her." Blah 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 blah. She didn't even do the exam of my mom. She just called the doctor and said she needs to be admitted to home hospice. Well, folks can stay in hospice for months, sometimes years. The next day, she said, "I'm not your hospice nurse, but she'll come out tomorrow." She came out. She's like, "We're not sure why they admitted your mom. Her vitals are strong. She's probably going to be here at home on hospice for a few months." We're like, "Nah, that's not going to happen."
Now, when was this exactly?
This was 6 days before. This was a Thursday.
So this was still in January?
This was in January.
Okay.
A week.
Okay.
Not even a week before she actually transitioned. They're like, "Oh, she's going to be in hospice for months because her vitals are strong." My mom had stopped eating. She had stopped speaking. She had stopped just everything. She had taken to the bed right after Christmas. And, we were there. We were coming in and going and learning how to do the meds and, changing depends and, just all of that stuff that goes along with home hospice. And we just knew. My sister, my dad, and I knew. We basically started calling the kids. Like that Sunday, we reached out to our kids and we're like, "Y'all, it's not going to be long. You need to come see Grandma." My mom was fully cognizant, fully present. The Friday after she went into hospice, I got the letter. My mom had for years asked me when I was going to accept a call that was on my life. I got the letter telling me I'd been accepted in seminary on that Friday, the day after she went into hospice. She had stopped speaking. The very last word on earth that my mom ever uttered was to me. I went over Saturday morning, and, my dad was standing in the doorway because he's nosy. And I said, "Mom, can I tell you something?" She nodded her head. I said, "Can I whisper it in your ear?" Because she knew my dad. Even with the Alzheimer's, my mom was cognizant at the end. God gave us that as a gift. "Can I tell you something?" She said, "Yeah." And so I whispered in her ear. I said, "I got into seminary." My mom's very last word on the earth was, "Hallelujah." It's the last thing she ever said. That was Saturday. Sunday, we had the kids come over. All the kids came. My niece drove up from Cincinnati to see my mom, and my son, my youngest son, my sister's sons, both of them came over. Our family just kind of came. We knew, and it was just crazy. All these things is they were going to give my dad a reprieve and put her into their internal hospice for a week so he could get a break. And we never got to that because the following Wednesday, my sister called me. She's like, "Get to Mom's fast." I got there and she was gone. So I spent the next few days not having time to grieve because my mom had put me in charge of everything, of planning, the funeral. And my sister, we knew she wouldn't even go to the funeral. So I didn't get to grieve. I didn't get to mourn. I didn't get to do any of that. I went into funeral prep mode. Managing family, managing to make sure my dad was good, making sure my brother was good, making sure all the kids were good. And, my mom had 12 grandkids, so making sure all the grandkids were good. And, my sister gets quiet. She goes off by herself. Just trying to do all of the dutiful things. Well, in the midst of everything, before my mom lost her memory a couple of years before, my mom had told me that she wanted me to be the person to preach her funeral. So, what time do I have in the morning? I got a funeral to play and a sermon to prepare.
So you went straight into action.
Yeah, I went into action. So for me, that was how I experienced my mom's death. Now, how I experienced post-death was totally different. I went into work mode. The beach is my happy place. The day after we buried my mom, my sister and I were sitting on the beach. It's my happy place. In 2021, me and my sister visited 9 beaches. We were gone. We were always in the wind. I'm like, I'm out. That was where I went to commune with God, to leave my cares behind, to lay on somebody's beach, to listen to the water half the night. That was how I grieved. July rolls around, and my sister saw something. I knew what I was feeling, but my sister was watching it happen. And my sister's counselor. She said,
this is July still of 2021.
2021. My sister said, I'm watching some stuff, and I'm watching you go into depression. And I was like, I'm good. She's like, you're not good. She was like, you need to find a therapist. She already had a therapist. She had a therapist before my mom passed. She was working on some things. She said, you need a therapist. I'm not going to therapy. I've been to therapy before. I'm good. I'm not going. And one day she called me. She would not let it go. One day she called me in August and she said, I lost Mom. I cannot lose you. And I'm losing you. And she was. She saw it.
Now, let me ask you this. You said she saw it. What is it now that you have to look, if you had to look back, what is it that she
just
saw?
saw
What did you know that you were doing?
Signs of depression. She saw it. She saw massive depression. She saw that, I know the signs of depression. She said, she saw that there were days I got up, I faked it. I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. I got up and I faked it. I got up every day when I made a whole lot of money during COVID. Everybody else was shut down. Schools were shut down. I did virtual. I turned into virtual because I'm a tech person. I turned into virtual 2 weeks after COVID hit. I did my first virtual keynote. I just worked. I worked my way through it. I'm a workaholic. My mom taught my sister and myself a really strong work ethic.
So you're working, instead of grieving, you went straight into work mode, basically ignoring the grieving process.
Think about it. When stuff hit, I'm going to deal, but I'm going to keep it moving because it's what Black women do. We just keep it moving. Life happens. When folks be like, oh, life gets hard, I quit. I don't know what that means. So for me, my therapy was work. I'm a workaholic anyway. I went into work mode. I went into beast work mode. And then when the cameras were off, I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. Even though we were in COVID, I didn't want to. COVID was the best thing that ever happened to me because I could go forever and never have human contact. I'm good. I'm good. I've always picked up. We just laughed. Everybody was like, "T, you've been COVID ready forever." Because I was using Zoom 6 years ago.
Oh, and it wasn't that popular.
My Sans said to me, she said, "Sans, you've been using Zoom." No, way before COVID. 6 years ago. COVID was just 3 years ago. She said, you were doing a show on COVID years ago. I said, yeah, I was. I mean, on Zoom. I was like, yeah, I was. I've always picked up my groceries ever since Kroger started that. So that wasn't new for me, not going into the grocery store. I hate grocery shopping. So nothing changed for me. I didn't have to have human contact. Most people know me. I don't talk on the phone. I'll text you all day long, but I ain't talking on the phone. So nobody could really see that I was drowning. You couldn't hear it in my voice because I'm not taking your phone calls. And so, yeah, we saw the signs of depression. I didn't want to get dressed most days. Thank God all we had to do is throw on a top and throw something, beat your face, and go on the screen. So my sister saw it. My sister's my best friend, and she knows everything about me. And so she finally talked me into it. And then the next step was finding a therapist. When you live in a city where you know most of the people, finding somebody that you don't know, that you trust, I had some stipulations. She got to be a woman of faith. She's got to be Black, and she's got to be a woman.
So did you found her, or somebody recommended her?
Somebody recommended her.
Somebody recommended her. You liked her.
One of my students. She said, I was talking to my staff one day in my summer program, and I said, oh my God, y'all. I was like, my sister's right. I need a therapist. I'm like, if I don't find a therapist, I'm going to hurt somebody. And I said, I can't find nobody because I know everybody. And you can't go to people that you know. So one of my students, she's actually my mentee. She's my special. She said, Miss T, do you know this person? And she gave me a name. I said, I don't. She said, I don't know why, but I think that y'all would vibe. I think you would like her. Okay, try it. I said, she Black? She's like, yeah. She said she's younger, but she's Black. Reached out. We did our consultation. The vibe was right for both of us.
Now, was everything in person or was it virtual? Because a lot of people were doing virtual.
It's still virtual.
It's virtual, okay.
It's still virtual. I love the fact that we could come on the screen. Because when I'm traveling, I still get therapy.
You get to tap into your therapist.
I still get therapy. Tuesday at 6:30 is sacred. Every other Tuesday at 6:30 is sacred. So when I'm traveling, I say to people, because I'm on a different time zone, hey, at 3:30, I got to go back to my hotel. I'll meet y'all for dinner, but I got to go back to my 3:30 West Coast time. So we're virtual. Our vibe has been amazing. It's been one of the best gifts I ever gave myself.
I love it. Let me take you back to, because you shared that your mom had Alzheimer's. Do you mind if I ask how long has she had the disease?
7 years.
7 years.
7 years.
And so in that 7 years, you've seen the changes in your mom.
Oh, yeah.
So do you feel like in that process, Do you feel like you lost your mom more than
Oh yeah.
once?
Oh yeah. Everybody who deals with a parent or sibling who has Alzheimer's, you grieve people who are still here. Because what you're really grieving is it's a shell of who they were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I'm grateful to God that my mom wasn't as severe as a lot of people that I know. Like I said, even when my mom left at the end, she knew everybody. You know,
That's amazing.
yeah, it was crazy. God is so faithful. In case you haven't gathered, I'm a woman of faith. I'm not just a woman of faith. I'm a Christian and I have strong faith. Yeah, so God is amazing, and He didn't just honor us; He honored my mom's commitment to Him. So, yeah, so it is when you deal with Alzheimer's, it's mourning people who are still here.
Wow, that's amazing. So 7 years, then you lost your mom, and then your sister is the one that pushed you into therapy because she's seen that you were going through depression and all the other things that come with it.
She did. She saw it.
So let me ask you this. So being a motivational speaker, you got to tap into people. You got to pour into people. So in your grieving process, how did you manage to do that? How did you recharge to even pour into people? Where did you find the strength to do that?
So it's not a strength. It really is. Speaking is a gifting. Everybody thinks that they can do it. Yeah, anybody can get up and read a piece of paper. I've never read a piece of paper in my life. I have a gift that allows me to disconnect from the parts of myself and to really just focus on the task at hand, particularly where it comes to people.
Now you say disconnect. Is that something that's automatic, or you really have to sit and?
No, it just happens.
It happens.
Okay. It happens. It's when you're called to do what you do. There's so little of you that has to. For example, I'm a severe introvert, but I speak to thousands of kids. I've spoken in arenas with 10,000 people, but most people who know me personally know that I'm an introvert. Which is why COVID was so good for me.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that the core of who I am is juxtapose what I do professionally. So I'm always disconnected.
Mm.
I'm an introvert who operates in a very extroverted world. So what that means is that I have to tap into the parts of my personality that are more extroverted. And so it's wow, it's work. People are like, when I'm done speaking, I'm tired. I'll go back to my hotel and go to bed. Because it drains me. It drains introverts to have to do severe extrovert kinds of activities.
You know, introverts, y'all hear that? You can be an introvert and be a motivational speaker. Okay? But I will agree with you. People that know me and know me well, for the most part, in a setting like 2 people, 3 people, I'm a talker. I will talk a lot. And people get that confused with when I'm around a lot of people, I'm more reserved. You probably wouldn't. You'd be like, "Does she talk?" You won't hear me say much of anything. And so for me, I realize like I'm an introvert, but when people hear me talk, they're like, "No, you are an extrovert." And I'm like, no, there's times I will.
Introvert and extrovert has very little to do with talking. It
Yes.
has everything to do with the place from which you draw energy.
Yes, and that's what people don't understand.
Where do you draw your energy? I got a Sans who will talk to a tree.
Okay, so wait a minute, because you saying Sans is special. Can we break down what Sans is special?
I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm not, we're not the only organization that uses those terms. Especially somebody who is a special sister to you when you come into the organization. And a Sans is the person, are people who were on the line that you came into the organization with.
Okay, so I just wanted to clear that up.
I got you. Thank you for asking me to clear that up. So my line sister, my Sans, is an extreme extrovert. She will talk to a tree. And she gains her energy from her connection to people.
To other people.
And you see her like extreme joy when she's with other people. When I'm with other people, people see me as aloof. People see me as standoffish. They see me as not connecting, snob.
Can't approach her.
It's not unapproachable. I'm none of those things. It's just I'm socially awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I'm a social awkward person. What do you want from me? And but
and I want people to know, like, that's okay. That's okay. Like, I had to learn, like, it's okay.
Oh, I'm perfectly content with who I am.
Yeah.
But let me just be clear. You to the world, it appears to be something, and I just simply say to people, one, I don't have time to care about what you think because I can't spend all my energy trying to please or satisfy people's opinions of who I am. But I do try to explain and say, here's what it is. It's that I'm socially awkward because I'm really an introvert. And when I come into social settings, I'm always weird and uncomfortable. So I try not to go to a whole lot of social settings.
Because I'm more comfortable sitting at home.
By myself in my underwear watching TV. Working on my papers. Playing on the computer.
Absolutely.
Creating. I create a lot of content. If you go to any of my pages, you see I've got a lot of content out there. That comes from my place when I'm alone.
So you automatically disconnect, which allows you to be the motivational speaker that you are and pour into young people without even thinking about what you have to go through as it relates to the grieving process. But then when you're done and then you're back in the setting of your alone time, like, what happens?
Sometimes I choose. It depends on what I'm working through. Sometimes I choose to write. I write grief out a lot. Sometimes for me, when grief strikes, I love to go to commune with God. And I get scripture that says we don't mourn like people who have no hope. We mourn, but it's not like this is the end. The Bible tells us that God, he said after that the Holy Spirit came, that the Holy Spirit would be a comforter. And I've experienced what that feels like. When I'm just at rock bottom and I'm missing my mom in ways I cannot explain to people, not even my sister, because she's grieving and she's experiencing it different because we had a different relationship. My mom was my sister's best friend. My mom was not my best friend. My mom was my sister's best friend, so the way that we grieve is totally different, and what we're grieving is totally different. So I don't even assume that though my sister and my brother are experiencing grief, and my dad. Imagine that this man was married to this woman for 59 years. Had my mom lived 8 more months, they would have been married 60 years.
Wow.
So imagine that he's grieving. My mom's sister, who's 94 years old right now, she lost her sister and her best friend. Growing up, we lived around the corner from my mom's sister. From my Marion lives around the corner. Literally, we come up Ellsworth, turn on Deshler, and we're in my aunt's house. And so, there are all these layers to how everybody's grieving. So my faith really is the thing that sustains me through grief. When I come home and I'm feeling sad, I'm lonely, I give myself permission to cry. Now, I'm that person who, when I'm feeling down, I don't turn on comedy. I turn on the saddest movies I can find.
Really?
I give me a good cathartic moment. Like my go-to, people are like, T, what are your go-to sad movies? I said my go-to sad movies are Beaches, Imitation of Life, and One True Thing. I'll watch those and I'm done. I can have a cry marathon, and then I get up and I go do what I gotta do. I keep it moving.
Now, have you always been that person?
Yes.
Okay. That watch sad movies.
I am, but I rarely, until my mom, I'm not a terribly emotive kind of person. My mom's death has hit me a little differently than some other, and my mom's certainly not the first person that I've lost. I've lost a lot of siblings. I've lost, lots of loss. But my mom's is the one that is so present. And so, fast forward, I'm going about life. I'm coming up on the 1-year anniversary of my mom's death. 2 days before the anniversary of my mom's death, my mentor, who I called my other mom, who my mom called my other mom, she called me and said, okay, T, I know we're coming up on the anniversary. What are you doing? Because your mom would not want you sitting around mourning. I'm like, okay. I said, well, I got a plan. I said, now you could get that call again, and I could be over in Macy's curled up in the fetal position, rocking and crying again. Like that happened to me a couple months after my mom died, and they called her because she was ice in my phone, and she had to come get me. I said, but I got a plan. I said, I'm having breakfast with my sister. We both took the day off. I'm having breakfast with my sister. I'm having lunch with Shauna and Takia. I'm having first dinner with Tracy and that crew, and I'm having second dinner with my specials. And then at 10:30, we're gonna get on a Zoom and do a call with my dean, my LMC. I'm gonna get on a call. Okay. Because she's in a different time zone. That's the plan. I said, but that could go sideways. But today, 2 days before, that's the plan. I did the whole day. I was finishing up second dinner. Yes, I had 2 dinners. I ate a little bit at each spot. I was finishing up second dinner. You were there. As we were taking the selfie, click, my phone showed up that my congresswoman was calling. I said, I'm going to call her as soon as we walk out of here. Call her back. I was like, hey, I thought she was calling to say Happy Founders Day because it was Founders Day. My mom died on Founders Day. And she was calling to tell me that my other mother, my mentor, had died same day, 1 year later. I remember falling backwards, my head hitting that wall, and y'all catching me. And then I just remember, her speeding up the street and turning around and getting out of her car to come and console me. But, yeah, that day was crazy. I called my therapist. I texted her and I said, I have to talk to you tonight. She called me about 11:30 because by the time I got home, all these calls had started to come in and I couldn't focus. I talked to my sister, I talked to my sons. That was it. And my head was just spinning. My therapist called me and I lost it. And later on, when she and I processed, she said, I want to note something for you. She said, when you came to me in August, you were grieving. When you called me, when Kathy died, you were traumatized. And she said, what do you think accounts for the difference? I said, I had 6 months. And we knew my mom was dying. Kathy's was out of the blue. It just... So for the last, 2 years, I've just been in a state of trying to figure out what a new norm looks like. The 2 women who gave you roots and wings, and how do you go on without those 2 guiding forces? And the void that it creates when you're the mentor to everybody, but the people who were your mentors, who you went to for guidance, are no longer here. Mm-hmm. So, in addition to grieving the physical absence of them, it's grieving all that came with their presence.
So in this, I've done some episodes early on where I've shared my story about grief. And it's interesting because, I think people, unless you've gone through the experience, people have this idea what grief is supposed to look like. But it doesn't have a look. It does not have a look. But what I want to ask you is, because of your experience being back to back, the space of grieving, right? Because your mom and then your second mom, so close, but it's like, I'm still going through this process of grieving. And then I have to grieve this. So how do you find, I don't know if it's the right word, but either the space and or just going through the process of it, because now you're grieving 2 people and you're only one person.
So for me, how they both hit is different. Grieving my mom, I share that with my siblings. We had a different Christmas this past year, and it was amazing, and created a new tradition that my mom would have loved for us. Grieving Kathy has been different because what I never want to do is step on the fact that she has 4 beautiful daughters of her own. And I never want folks to make this about me when this is about her family. She left a husband and grandkids and 4 beautiful daughters. So, like this year, on the anniversary of their passing, I didn't make a post about Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I reached out to Kathy's daughter that I'm close to, and I said, hey, I'm praying for you guys today. I'm not going to post about your mom because I want you all to have this day.
Have that space.
But it doesn't mean I didn't grieve. I grieved privately for both of them for different reasons and in different ways. The irony is, I've spent, my therapist, I love my therapist. She and I have talked a lot about, like, how do you want this grieving process to go? What do you want it to look like? Like, she and I are both very clear that we think Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief is bullshit. I don't mean to curse on your thing, but we both we think it's bullshit. Uh-huh. One, it's so Eurocentric that there are stages. Because stages imply that there are levels to grief. And it makes people think that it's supposed to be linear. From here to here, you go from here to here. And it is so not encompassing of Afrocentric thought of holistic living. So for me, I'm glad I ain't have to talk to her about I'm in this stage of grief. We came to the table both agreeing that I'm not buying the bullshit. I want this process to be authentic for me. I wanted to talk about the healing process that is more holistic, that deals with the spiritual man and the physical man, and how does grieving impact all of the different parts of who we are, that aren't in stages. I'm not a stage person. I'm a whole person. And there are days when my mom's death impacts me spiritually, because it causes me to have conversations with God that take me to the core of who I am as a human being. Then there are days when I'm emotionally dealing with the emotionality of loss and absence. And then there are days when I can feel physically ill from the pain. I can feel physical pain. I know people think that's crazy. I know what heartbreak feels like. There are days when I'm not having a heart attack. There are days when my heart aches for these two amazing women, especially my mom. And so for me, I grieve them differently. I spent the last year deciding that the best way for me to process my grief is to make sure that their name goes on in the earth. So I spent the last year finding ways to honor both of them. Both of them believed in education, particularly for kids of color, particularly for Black kids. And so I spent the last year giving scholarships in both of their names. I've always had a scholarship that I did in the name of the teacher, my soror, who was my lifesaver. Did that years ago. But this last year, for example, the other day I'm doing an event in February, and they don't really have the amount of money that is my fee. It's local, and it's someone that I care about. So she said, but I want to do something. So I asked her she said, I want to do $1,000. I said, okay. I said, can you make a check out to, I know I can, and in the memo line, in honor of Teresa Street. So I've been collecting funds, and I know I can. My mom believed that for Black kids, that education was the difference between poverty and not. And so I know my mom would be happy. Last year, NPHC, the National Pan-Hellenic Council, which oversees all the Black sororities and fraternities, they decided that they were going to do matching scholarships. So I matched a scholarship for a Black male in my mother's name. My mom loved Black boys. She's very much like me in my mother's name. And then I did one in Kathy's name for a Black girl.
Wow. And they matched it.
And so there was a match. So the kids got like $2,000 because, I gave $1,000 over here and $1,000 over here. And so they got $2,000 scholarships, which was very, very cool. And I was out of town. So my brother went to present my mom's, and Kathy's daughter came to present hers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Kathy's daughter was a Woman of Achievement last year, and they have a scholarship fund at Mount Carmel College of Nursing where Kathy worked for like 25 years. And so it was crazy because she and a couple other friends were Women of Achievement last year. So I donated in Kathy's name to her scholarship fund in her daughter's name, in honor of her daughter and these other two women. Every chance I get, giving scholarships, whether they're big or small, $500 here, $1,000 there, in their name, so that their name goes on in the earth. I gave for Mother's Day last year. There's a young woman's program called Erin Pink. I gave Erin $500 in my mother's name and $500 in Kathy's name. For me, part of my processing grief is making sure that the generation that's coming know that there were these two amazing women who walked the earth.
Keeping their footprints going, the legacy of their names. I love that. So I want to take, so when you mentioned the 7 stages, because I had this conversation kind of some months back, and somebody had asked me about, have you went through this stage? And I was just like, what is that? And so for the audience, I want to make sure that I mention what the stages are that you're talking about, which is the disbelief, the denial, the guilt and pain, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance. And I think that's all of the stages, which when you said they're not linear, I totally agree, right? Because it's like, well, depression, okay, I think I definitely went through that, know what that looks like, right? But then this is like acceptance, like what does that mean? Bargaining, what does that mean? And so when you said it makes it look like you're supposed to go through all these steps, I agree. Like, it makes you feel like I'm supposed to go through all these steps in order to know that I done got through the grief process, which goes back to what does grief even look like? Because what I have experienced is that it's an ongoing process. Mm-hmm. And I think what I have accepted is that this is going to be part of a lifetime for me of my process until I take that journey, right? And so, and again, I don't think people actually get it until they experience it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew what process you were talking about. So you mentioned you have one sister and one brother?
And it depends on how you define family.
Let's just say siblings, mm-hmm. right? So in the grieving process, sibling, friends, whatever the relationship is, right? How did that impact your relationships? Whether it was with family, siblings, dating, how did grieving impact any of those relationships?
My sister is my best friend, but it's made us even closer. I'm extremely protective of my dad. My brother and I are mending some things.
And that's because of the grieving.
Oh yeah. It's because of all of our loss and needing each other, and all of us experience different things. Mm-hmm. Like I don't carry guilt. I was good to my mom. My sister didn't carry guilt. She was good to my mom. My brother, he's got some guilt. Everybody's processing it differently, but we've become closer. Collectively as a family. Like I said, we're finding new traditions, finding new ways to, I got the advice from my Sans, from Shauna. She said, Sans, don't do anything the way you used to do it. Do it differently. So the first Christmas, we went away. We went away to the beach. Mm-hmm. I told you I love the beach. We went away to the beach and celebrated at the beach. This year, everybody, the kids, our boys couldn't get off work and so we had to create something. So we rented an Airbnb on Christmas Eve. We've never celebrated on Christmas Eve. And had all the kids. We played games, we had food, just kicked it. And then we had done a gift exchange, and that was new for us. We've never done that. In fact, my brother's kids have never spent Christmas with us. This was their first Christmas that they've ever spent with us.
How old are they?
They range in age from like 20 to
so they older. They're not 80.
No,
okay, so they
24 to like 5.
Okay.
Yes, they're in the. So they've never spent Christmas with us. My brother has 8 children. And they've never spent Christmas with us. So this is our first Christmas together. Our kids don't really know each other. And they're getting to know each other. And the older ones, they're all like, my brother has a son that's 3 months younger than my son. So they all figured out that they all
mm-hmm.
got some things in common.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been an interesting process, my aunt, making sure she's good and never leaving without saying I love you, I'm here. Because Christmas Eve she turned 94, and being ever cognizant. My other relationships, I hold on tighter than I used to. I'm abundantly clear that this life is fleeting. And if I love you, I don't want to leave this world without you knowing that I love you. So I think relationship wise, but I also let go of stuff faster. I'm the kind of person, I don't hold on to stuff anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, I'm pretty direct. Once I say what's on my mind, I'm done.
You're done with it.
And I don't mean done like I'm done with you. I mean, I forget what I was mad about.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I can say it, if I don't say it, it eats at me until I can. But people that don't matter, I don't invest energy anymore because life is so short.
That's good.
I just don't invest the energy.
That's good.
I've got limit. I'm really clear that there are far more days behind me than in front of me. I want to invest the energy that I have in the people who, one, matter, and two, want it.
That was actually going to my next question as it relates to boundaries. So that's technically like some of the boundaries that you have set up.
It is. I don't entertain BS. People use phrases like, I guard my peace at all costs. It's not just a quote. It's the Bible says we're supposed to, that God is the guarder of our peace. But I seek peace. I used to like to argue. I don't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the argument, you can win.
Because it's disrupting my peace.
You can win. I'm good. I don't fight to be in relationships anymore where I gotta fight to be in a relationship.
And that's any relationship.
Any relationship. Friends, sorority sisters, family. I love hard. One of my cousins today's her birthday. And I posted and I said, it's hard for me. I said, because she's the cousin who renewed my faith in cousins.
Okay.
And she posted back on mine. Because I said, it's my cousin. I said, it's my cousin, Stephanie, for me. And she said, it's the blood and loyalty for me. She said, because you are deeply loyal. When I love you, I am loyal. And so I've become even more loyal.
Listen, you do ride hard.
I ride hard.
You ride hard.
For people that I love, I am a rider. People say, oh, such as a ride or die. I'm a ride or die.
Yeah, you ride hard.
And you know what? In my mom's obituary, I said, when my mom loved you, you knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And when she didn't,
you knew it. Yeah.
And people was like, amen. Amen.
That is funny because that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. When I was younger, my grandmother used to be like, the only thing we're promising this world is that you're going to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're going to leave this earth. I used to be like, what is this old lady talking about?
Mm-hmm.
What? Like, oh, wait, I'm 17. What are you talking about? And the older I get, I'm like, oh, she is right. Like, that's the only thing we are truly promised. And I know it sounds like a cliche that life is short, but the truth is life is short. And it's like, for me, I'm going to take all the risks I can because I'm hoping I ain't called tomorrow. But if I am, I want God to be like, she started moving at her purpose.
Mm-hmm.
She started answering that knock I've been knocking on for so long, And so I'm about to start getting teary-eyed. But anyway, I agree. Life is short.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell people, and I understand it better. I believe that every generation is supposed to leave the next generation better. My mom believed that. And so my mom didn't have college education. She and my dad had high school diplomas, but not college. They made sure that we were college educated. But one of the things that my mom had was regrets. And I don't want to have any. So I do what I want to do, say what I want to say, move how I want to move.
Keep it moving.
I don't want to leave the earth. But the other thing that I'm abundantly clear about is, and I tell people this all the time, when I die, I intend to be a grave robber.
But tell me what that means.
Sounds a little morbid, but it's not. When we die, there's nothing earthly that we can take with us. When I die, The only thing that will be in my coffin will be the carcass. Because I intend, while I'm here, to pour out on the earth everything that God placed in me. So even through grief, I get up and I pour out. I pour out even when it hurts to pour out. I'm doing a speech for some kids tomorrow. The number one thing on their list is mental health. I have to share my story in order to talk to them about mental health. Every time I do this, because I've been telling the story this whole school year on the road as I'm traveling, because when I reached out to kids on a Zoom and asked them what are the topics I should be talking about, all the kids said mental health. And if you won't talk about it, T, you're a hypocrite, because it's important to us, but y'all say you care about what we care about.
Yeah.
So in order for me to delve into that, I've had to tell my story. And sometimes it hurts. It brings things to the surface that I don't want to talk about on the surface. But part of my purpose is to make sure that I leave the atmosphere better than when I got there. So what that means is that you pour anyway. I intend to pour out everything because it's wasted in the grave.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. We'll be going to wrap up here soon. When my mom transitioned, I had someone ask me, he said, what can you be thankful for in your mom's transition? Now, mind you, this was like in the very beginning stages, and I looked at him, I'm thinking, what type of question is that? Like, what do you mean thankful for? And so he was like, he was like, can you find something to be thankful for? And I couldn't hear, because what I was hearing or what I was processing at the time was, you need to find something to be thankful for, and I ain't got my mama. I'm about to punch you in your throat, because what type of question is that? So it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe some time later where I realized that was a legit question. There were some things I could be thankful for in the transition of my mom. So I want to ask you, are there some things that you are thankful for?
Absolutely.
In the transition of your mom?
Oh, absolutely.
And can you share a couple of them?
I shared a little bit of it in the beginning. I'm grateful to God that He answered our prayers, that He didn't prolong my mom here in the state that she was in. I'm grateful. My mom would have hated to live like that. I'm super, super thankful. I'm thankful for I'm thankful that the pain of loss really is a reflection of love. If you don't love somebody, ain't no pain there when they're gone. So I'm thankful for knowing what love of a parent
is and
feels like. I'm thankful that my mom's not suffering. I'm thankful that her mind is restored, because there's nothing worse than watching somebody with a really sharp mind. My mom was, she was sharp. I mean, intellectually smart. My passion for politics, my passions for history, all those things came from my mom. I went through, the craziest political time in the world, not able to talk about it with anybody, because my mom was the person I used to, Mom, can you believe this? When Barack Obama was running for office the first time, I had tickets every time he came to Columbus. He came to Columbus 6 times. And I had tickets to every single one. We had front row seats at some of the events, because at that time I was director of education for the mayor. We had good seats. My mom, one time I couldn't even go. My mom was sitting up in there. I was like, how you get to go? And so I'm to be grateful that my mom's mind, because my faith teaches me that, and I know different people have different faiths, but I don't know how people get through grief without faith. My faith teaches me that it doesn't end here. That the Bible says to be absent from the body really is to be present with the Lord. The Bible tells us that we will see each other again. It says, in 1 Thessalonians 4, it talks about, I would not have you ignorant that concerning those who have gone on, basically. And it says, that at the end, when Jesus comes back, that there will be a reunification, that the dead in Christ, but it says that the dead in Christ shall rise first, and we are who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the air to meet the Lord. And though there probably won't be families in heaven, I know that my mom, I know that she left this world loving Jesus, and so I know that she's communing. I laugh all the time. On Founders Day this year, one of the things that made me laugh was I was picturing my mom and Kathy seeing each other for the first time when she got to heaven. And they used to have this love fest. They would see each other and they would hold each other's faces.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, "You're so beautiful. No, you're so beautiful. I love your hair. No, your hair is the one that's beautiful." I'm like, "Oh my God, you're about to make me throw up in my mouth." The mutual admiration. They would hold each other's faces and just touch each. And I imagine that they did that when they got there. My mom said, Kathy said, "Oh, your halo is so beautiful." And she said, "No, your halo is beautiful. Look at all those pearls in your crown. Look at them diamonds." After they got done with all that. Mm-hmm. And I imagine Kathy looked at my mom and said, "Got her." Kathy Espy always said that she said, "You've been such a good mentee. The only mistake you ever made was that red stuff." Because Kathy was a member of AKA.
Okay.
And she always gave me a hard time about being a Delta. And so I know she looked at my mama and said, "We got her. She ain't never going to enjoy Founders Day again." Having those moments. And so when I look at my mom's transition, there's so many things that bring me comfort, and so many things that make me know that my mom is, earth at the end was hard for her because of her illness. And so it's not hard anymore. So for that, I'm thankful.
I love that.
Love allows you to be thankful. Because the Bible tells us that we don't mourn. That really our mourning is for us. It ain't for them. Because they're in a different place.
Truth.
And so my thankfulness is out of my love for her. Wanting her. Because I told you, we prayed that God would not keep my mom here like that for long.
It wasn't a life. That wasn't a type of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, that your mom wouldn't want to live.
She would have hated it.
As a national motivational speaker that is going through the grieving process, not only once but twice, as you shared, as anybody that is listening to this podcast that is also a national motivational speaker that may be dealing with grief, right? Because you shared for you, it's very easy to disconnect because of that's just who you are, that you're made up like that, right? But is there any advice or share that you will want to pour in or just share a seed to someone who might be going through grief but also has to get in front of
teachers,
people,
not just not just speakers,
absolutely teachers, people who have to get up and actually deal with not just the audience but, like you said, teachers, people in general, right? What would you share with them? Social workers.
I would say to them, feel what you feel when you feel it. The world will adjust. You feel one day you get up in front of your kids and Johnny say something that triggers something for you, say, "I'm going to need a minute." And then allow them to see it. So when kids start to grieve, they know that grief is real and that it's okay and that you can survive it.
I love that.
When I'm having a moment, and I've had some moments, I feel it. I don't care who sees it. I compose myself. Pretty private about it. Most of my breakdowns are at home by myself. But on a couple of occasions when I've been speaking, it's been very emotional for me, especially when I first started to tell the story. My commitment to telling the story. I allowed myself to have the moment, and I took kids along on the journey with me. And guess what? They were better for the journey. Kids reach me on Instagram and are like, I lost my mom, and I was so happy to hear. But I also, one of the things that I think that grief can take people out. I've watched people.
For sure. Absolutely.
I've watched people not be able to recover. I highly recommend therapy. Highly recommend it. People are like, oh, what about your faith? I need a Jesus and therapy. There's a meme that, circulates on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter, and on TikTok. It's okay to not be okay. Every therapist put it out there. It's okay to not be okay. I don't want to stop there, particularly when we're talking about something like grief, that if people spiral too far and they don't have the tools, they can't come back from. So I don't want to end that quote with it's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely.
I want to say it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay. When we stay in that place and we don't start to find the tools that we need to dig our way out of it, folks become suicidal, they become delusional, they become withdrawn. And spiritually, we give the enemy a playground. Not letting him play on this ground.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would say to people, have the moment. Bring people along on the journey, because in this culture, we talk about, we got to normalize therapy. We got to normalize that grief is a part of life. If you live long enough, you will experience it.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's one of those taboo topics, nobody talks about the grieving process. Nobody talks about it, that it's a lifelong process. Like you, I believe I'll be grieving my mom until the day I see her again on the other side for myself. Nobody talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, have the moment. People will adjust. They'll get over it or under it and push.
Yeah, I you know what, I agree with you. Until I went through this experience, you don't realize like what others before you go through, because like you said, damn, talk about it, right? So my mom, she lost her mom.
Mm-hmm. Mine too.
They, her siblings had lost their mom.
They kept it moving.
And they kept it moving, mm-hmm. right?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody talked about it, so I didn't think about anything, right? Just thinking it's normal. And before that, like somebody had lost somebody, but until I went through it, I'm like, oh no, I have to change this. Mm-hmm. I have to change this, because this is what my mama went through when she lost her mom.
Every generation is supposed to get better.
Didn't talk about it.
Every generation, I said it earlier, every generation is supposed to get better.
Yes, and so it's just like, no, I want to talk about this. I want to normalize grief. I want to normalize transparency, right? Because the other thing, at least I grew up with, we don't talk about that. We'll stay in this house, don't go nowhere. You don't share that. But I also I believe that in order to just not fix the next generation, but for all of us to work together, right, to heal. My story is just not healing me. It might heal whoever hears this podcast, right? Mm-hmm. But then I also believe in a domino effect, for somebody to say, oh, wait, she shared her story. She did this, she did that. I can do it, right? Mm-hmm. It becomes a domino effect, and I believe it causes a healing for all. And so for me, it's just like, if I don't do anything else on this earth, I'm going to make sure everybody understands that grieving and sharing your story and being transparent connects us all. Mm-hmm. In so many ways.
Because this is a universal experience.
Yes.
Everybody will lose someone.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Everyone on this planet will lose someone. If they stay here long enough, everyone on this planet will lose someone.
But as we wrap up, mm-hmm. we ask all of our guests to give our audience an affirmation, right? Affirmation that they can deposit in the affirmation bank to help them continue moving on into this life, this journey of life. So, can you tell our audience or give our audience an affirmation?
I think that my affirmation is that life is complex, but so are the tools in our toolbox to navigate it. We get to choose every single day whether and how we navigate life. So choose well, because we only get one of these things called life. Write it out.
I love that. I might have to hit replay and put that in my box.
Write it out. And when you're doing it, if you're going through grief, write it out in honor of the person that you're grieving. Because that's how they stay alive. Every time I step on a stage and I speak truth to power for young people, I'm depositing a piece of Teresa every single day. Because so much of what I talk to kids about are the things that my mother taught me. So I'm leaving a piece of Teresa everywhere I go. The thousands of kids I spoke to in 2022, I filled their cups with a little Teresa wisdom. Write it out.
The legacy and the footprints.
Mm-hmm. And my mom,
Miss Teresa.
When my grandmother was alive, my grandmother said something. We used to talk. My grandmother had a third grade education. She was the wisest woman that I ever knew. And I didn't understand it then.
Mm-hmm.
You say stuff to me. But one day I said, Grandmother, what you gonna leave me as my legacy? What you leaving us? She said, well, some folks, mostly white folks, they leave money as a legacy. And that's all right. But if that's all they leave, when they're gone, when the money's gone, so is the legacy.
Absolutely.
She says, I'm going to leave you something else. I'm going to leave you a legacy of strength, courage. She said, I'm going to leave you a legacy of strength, courage, endurance, and pride. Those are the 4 things I'm leaving you. What you do with them, that's on you. And so when I walked the earth as my mother's daughter, my mom was strong. She was courageous. My mom survived cancer at the age of 23 when they didn't have all the weapons against cancer that they have today.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom survived cancer. My mom she was strong. She was courageous. She was, she was all those things. And she had mad pride. So, like, even at her funeral, I said to everybody, all the kids, I said, anybody fall out, I'm going to punch you in your throat. Because we don't do that. My mom was a proud woman. We don't fall out in caskets. Grieve on your own time.
Yeah.
The kids are like, Auntie crazy. Because my mom, she was a very proud woman. So all the things that my grandmother said she was leaving me, my mom was the person who taught me how to walk them out. Strength, courage, endurance. I'll never quit. It ain't in me. That endurance piece. I don't care if you knock me down 102 times. I'm getting up 103 because quit ain't in me. I learned that from my mother. That's why the day after I get done grieving, I get on the screen and I grin and I do my speech because quit ain't in me. I learned that from my mama. The fact that my mama knew who we were at the end and she left this earth on her own terms because quit wasn't in her. Period with a T. Stop, pause.
Okay, now. I love that. As you see, we just have a good time here on Happy Hour Conversations podcast where we tackle those emotional, hard conversations, but also bring laughter because there is something to the other side of pain, right? Mm-hmm. Pain and happiness can coexist. And so that's what we're about. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, T. I am Tamika.
And I'm the amazing T Street.
Thank you for joining in for Happy Hour Conversations. Peace.
Doses.
Thank you for joining the Happy Hour Conversations podcast, where we discuss heavy, emotional, and raw conversations sprinkled with laughter. Be sure to follow us on IG at Happy Hour Conversations podcast, and also subscribe to the podcast to stay tuned to our weekly Happy Hour Conversations. I am your girl, Tamika, our moon, and I'll see you next week.